it's definitely crisis mode to an extent. You have some people out there who's like, well, you don't have to run Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales because just having inventory is going to be in and of itself, a value add and people will buy. Like, I don't know that that's true. Like, I don't think a majority of the general public understands that. Like, I think a lot of the public is still going to come like December 15th and think they can go on Amazon Prime and get stuff. And like, that ain't happening.
Hello and welcome to the D2C podcast. I'm Eric Dick. Today we had a little bit of a different conversation with Ian Leslie, who's recently completed a 5-year stint as the CMO for Industry West, a game-changing online furniture retailer who has just really rode the D2C wave successfully. He has since moved to the service side, and he's now a senior director of retail operations for Bolt.com. But this conversation was a wide-ranging conversation between two 40-something D2C and marketing vets about the state of the industry and the future of what's to come. We talk a little bit about why we're both in the D2C space. We talk about key lessons from his 5 years at Industry West. We talk about the future of fast checkouts. We even go into baseball cards, NFTs, and some big news from Adobe. And then we end on a bit of a down note, but it's some real talk about the coming and already here supply chain crunch that so many D2C brands are experiencing here in Q4. You're not going to want to miss this one. Hope you like it. On with the show. Banking for online business owners can be a pain. Fees, minimum balance requirements, inability to connect with payment processors, slow international payments, and more fees. Did we mention the fees? Mercury is banking built for e-commerce. With Mercury, you can get an FDIC-insured U.S. business bank account in less than 10 minutes. Create virtual debit cards instantly, send domestic and international wires, and connect with your payment processors, platforms, and accounting software seamlessly. Plus, no account opening fees, wire transfer fees, or minimum balance requirements. It's banking for D2C founders. Try Mercury and upgrade your business banking today. Click the link in the description to sign up. Welcome to the D2C podcast, Ian. I wanted to just start off with a different question for you. Why are you in the D2C space?
That's a great question. I don't know, man. So my background is I was a journalist at a school, really glommed on to like a lot of data concepts and just conceptual thinking and strategic thinking in my work as a journalist, and also kind of came up during social media marketing was kind of making its way into the world, and newspapers were starting to take on more and more social media marketing. And so I got into social media, got into jack of all marketing, ended up doing lead gen, demand gen within higher education. And I think just like what I learned in that space, and being able to kind of turn levers on and off to help bring prospects into the top of the funnel when I was in higher ed just kind of gave me a passion for all that comes with that. And so that kind of naturally went from lead gen, demand gen in that space and took me into e-commerce and D2C, and was on the merchant side for a good while. And now I'm on the SaaS side. And yeah, I mean, that's just sort of how I got to this path.
I think it's interesting, and I had the same path. I came in through affiliate marketing, and it really is just it's the nature of performance marketing where you can take a bunch of actions, see the results of the actions, and then refine your actions and see better results. It's that immediate feedback loop that I think is like intoxicating for so many people that I know of our generation who have like really gotten into this space. It's that ability to like create actual results very quickly and have them be measurable and optimizable that a lot of people find, hard to put down.
Yeah, I think that's certainly fair. I mean, I think, I had a good conversation with Phil Jackson yesterday. Do you think there's like a mental health aspect that we all have to kind of consider as part of that now, as like we're kind of on all the time? And, Shopify like pushes like their sales ticker that you can put by the side of your bed, and you see every time you made a sale. And like I know I had my like we were on Magento, but I mean I got a ping literally for every order. And I mean I do think there's like a mental health component that needs to be considered as part of that. But yeah, man, it's addicting for sure, right? Like you see that your actions create a reaction, and can lead to lift in sales and engagement. I mean, yeah, it's huge.
I think you bring up a really good point about, the mental wear and tear of being so results focused, results driven. I know of, Shopify's onboarding process. I don't know if it still is, but it was sort of, a couple years ago, there was a component to it was like, we understand you're gonna have a breakdown. Like part of working at Shopify is like
Yeah.
understanding, that you're gonna push yourself, hard. And it's really interesting. And the person that I know who was onboarded during this time was just sort of like, okay, well, it's good to know that I'm going to be working so hard that I might, be risking a
Hmm.
breakdown. And it's really interesting. It's especially now, as I don't know if you're in the same boat, but like this room that I'm in, this house, my house now. I don't go to an
Yeah.
office. Like I have this ring light, I have this microphone, and I have
Yeah.
this computer, and all day just kind of pouring myself into it to see these results. But when you're winning, it feels so good.
It does. It does. I always like, it was always so cool to me when I saw people around me within like a regional geo who were purchasing from the site I worked for but didn't know me. So it was like
Mm.
the brand had extended to my area but wasn't associated with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this order is going like 2 miles away and I don't know these people. So like they found the brand and they liked it. And I mean, yeah, there's an exhilaration for sure. It's a fun ride. And I think like I've done a lot, in addition to I was in the DTC merchant side with Industry West, but I mean, I've worked on social for a number of different other campaigns, and I was like a ghost social person for a wine campaign for or a wine brand freelance. I always just thought it was so odd that like I was, writing these people as their Twitter as the wine Twitter account, and I like had two young boys at the time, and like I think there were 3 and 4 at the time. I'm like my hair's on fire, and like but the customer is like, the wine account just wrote to me, and I'm like, I'm just some guy over here, I don't know what I'm doing, but yeah, so it's interesting. It's an interesting world for sure.
Yeah. What's your favorite ever ad platform you've worked on?
Favorite ever ad platform? Wow, that's I don't know. I don't know that I have a great answer for that.
Got
I
to be
mean, I
Facebook
really
ads.
what?
It's got to be Facebook ads. No, like it's such a powerful, system.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, I think it exceeded my intelligence. That's why I brought people on the agency side. I mean,
Yeah.
I enjoyed. I mean, I know like when I was able to be pretty ground level on when Pinterest. We were actually one of their beta partners, and I was in the Shoe West in their promoted pins. So I mean, I think that was a cool experience for me, and just an opportunity to see that lift and be kind of a guinea pig for Pinterest. So I mean, I think that always has like kind of a soft space in my heart. But yeah, I mean, I think yeah, Facebook, Facebook giveth and taketh away, both in terms of like how they operate, but then also like the complexity of it could be so easy, it could be so difficult. There could be times where you're just like beating your head against the wall and not understanding, or even not even able to access like proper permissions and stuff. It's a little complex, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly powerful.
It's quite an incredibly robust tool for us. Honestly, when it comes to lead generating, finding more people like you and I who we want to subscribe to the newsletter, we're finding TikTok is just like tenfold higher
Oh,
quality
really?
a little bit. We're just, which is
Wow.
funny when I think about it, because I think about like if I'm on Reels, I'm watching funny gags and really like high
Hmm.
level goofy things. But if I'm on TikTok, like there's a whole range of things that I could be into on TikTok that
Right.
like that so I just feel like it's a platform that goes in that live video that goes a little bit deeper. I haven't run any ads on it myself. We're actually working with a performance agency who runs the
Oh,
ads.
nice.
But
Nice.
yeah, it's been a very interesting experience on that platform as well. I go back to the day where we were buying on different display platforms and real time bidding and all those types
Yeah,
of things, which
sure.
were
Yeah.
nightmares.
Yeah, much different. Yeah, yeah, much different
Indeed.
world.
Nice. Well, why don't you can you give me the story of Industry West a little bit? Like just to talk a little, crystallize your time there, 5 years in the heart of the D2C movement.
Yeah, yes. When I came on in Industry West, it was 2015. I mean, I think Industry West was pretty an early adopter in terms of e-commerce in the furniture space. So I think the fact that Industry West was holding inventory was allowing lesser consumer side, but more trade side to actually like buy in bulk online and not necessarily have to reach out for a quote or an estimate and then take the transaction offline was was a new concept for e-commerce furniture. So I mean, I think coming in, really the decision was to continue to allow that trade opportunity, but put a kind of consumer side spin on it. And what we quickly learned, and a lot of it was the nature of the product, was that we weren't selling traditional office furniture or restaurant furniture. We were selling office and restaurant furniture that people also wanted in their homes. So really, it became easy just to market it as a consumer side brand entirely, and then to kind of hit both segments, consumer and trade. And what we quickly learned is like the trade buyer isn't so different than the consumer buyer,
Mm.
is that you just have to have the tools in place, and a lot of them being conversational tools to allow them to succeed in their purchase. So it's like, hey, saw this chair in a Instagram ad, go to the site, love the chair. Do you have 200 of them? And are they, and what's the weight capacity? And you answer those questions for them and they're ready to check out. So, I mean, we saw like, my first couple of, my first year there, we rarely saw that trade order occur online. And then by the time I had left, in June, we were regularly seeing like, substantial trade orders of units, 40, 50, 60 units occurring online. So, that was a big change in the industry. That being said, I mean, I think furniture as a vertical is always going to be a bit of an old-fashioned kind of vertical, and
Hmm.
you're always going to have people who like go on your site, love your product, add 100 to the cart, take it away, take it all the way through to checkout, and then take a screenshot and send it to a sales rep for a quote,
Yeah.
which was always a little frustrating. But yeah, I mean, so we saw, I don't want to dive too much into the numbers as I'm not there anymore, but, saw exponential growth on the e-commerce side, saw growth in share of overall, revenue in terms of e-commerce. Um, with kind of always staying true to just offering amazing product and being open to consumer side and trade side and just I've been Jordan, who's the CEO and founder. I mean, he's gone on record just saying, and we kind of chatted about this a lot. Is like the company he created in 2010, I don't think could be created in 2021. Just in the nature of how many competitors there are out there in the space and the cost per acquisition and just the competitive nature and then just people's attention span too now. I mean, they're just seeing so many ads.
Yeah.
And like the first time you look for furniture online, you're immediately going to now get, 27, different companies trying to hit you up. So I don't know that it's something that could happen today. The way he did it, particularly bootstrapped, is a huge just feather in his cap, and so happy for what they've built. And yeah, that was my time there, and now I'm at Bolt, where I'm on the SaaS side with one click checkout, which is amazing because I get to touch a lot of different brands
Yeah.
and be part of their success. So yeah.
Very cool. I wanted to just go back just a little bit on the trade stuff because as we haven't had anyone on the podcast talk about marketing to trade in that kind of way. Is it different than marketing to direct to consumer in that are you using Facebook ads to reach restaurant owners and restaurant buyers and things like that? Or describe to me what the trade, like how the scale happened in trade.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like really to the point. To my point is that like I think we were offering such a product that we didn't have to be too segmented in the audience because like the product we were selling worked just as well in a hotel lobby as it did in someone's living room,
Yeah.
or like these you know the bistro chair, the bistro stool, right? Like people want that for their cottage their farmhouse kind of kitchen as much as they do for the pizzeria. So like that was a benefit of like being able to basically cast a pretty broad net and hit the consumer and also hit the trade. So now like we did try to, once they came online, like we would offer like a trade form they could fill out and get to know who they were and what the demographic, what the audience we were talking to was, and there were trade discounts, etc. But really, we tried to treat it very similarly in how we segmented the marketing. I mean, we did take opportunities to like try to target ASID, interior design firms, different organizations and interior design firms on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn's CPAs are just so high. I never really could just never validated the extra expense of what we saw of those. So we never really went that route. I mean, so much so that like I'd say like in terms of channel, how we looked at the channels. I mean, we divested a lot out of Google while I was there, and just went much more into the social, Pinterest, Instagram, even like using like a Criteo retargeting sort of stuff. And yeah, just less keyword search and more just that we could get, visuals in front of people.
Yeah, top of funnel kind of stuff. Excellent, very cool. So, talk to me a little bit about the retail space right now. You probably work with a lot of retail brands at Bolt. Are are a lot of retail, like, which brands are doing the retail to e-commerce trend the best, would you say?
Hmm. Which brands are doing retail to e-commerce the
Because
best?
if I
It's a
understand,
great
you're the
question.
director of retail at Bolt, is that right?
No, retail advocacy. So it's really like merchant advocacy. So
Merchants.
not necessarily, yeah. So
Okay, got it.
overall, I mean, really, I'm working with all of our partner brands. So like Solo Stove, right? We have Solo Stove. We have we're actually onboarding Casper relatively soon, which is really cool. Lucky Brand, Forever 21. Some really cool brand, Burt's Bees Babies, which is an amazing pajama brand. Pollywood is another furniture brand. So really, I mean, mostly e-commerce brands that aren't
Got it.
necessarily, we say retail, it's more of like a global thought of retail. Not
Got it.
necessarily all of them are in retail. I think Solo Stove is in some retail locations. Um, but I mean, yeah, mostly, I mean, largely D2C brands that we're working with. So yeah, yeah.
Nice. And so what are the brands that you work with doing best at checkout? Like what are like the best practices right now for the highest conversion rate from that process?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think really, I mean, I've been seeing a lot of conversation always, right? Checkout's always being discussed on Twitter, like constantly. But I mean, I think like what a big differentiating, aspect is like to be able to offer many checkout options without it looking like a NASCAR, right? Without having like checkout stickers everywhere and having like different checkout gateways and all that. So like, I think what makes like Bolt for one, and not to like kind of just continue to talk about Bolt too much, but I think what makes it like a really interesting product is that it's sort of agnostic to the gateway, and it's more about just helping you get the conversion. So like when you're adding, like you can now add buy now pay later options directly through Bolt. You can add alternative payment methods, whether it's a PayPal or an Amazon Pay, directly through Bolt. But it's all being added to like the same payment modal.
Mm,
So like it's getting you to the point of checkout, popping this like really aesthetically pleasing payment modal that's branded with your branding, and then it's offering like, okay, well, do you want to use Apple Pay? Do you want to use credit card? Do you want to use Affirm or Klarna? And that's where I think like that's I think a big differentiator is just like whereas a lot of these are just offering like 27 buttons in the mini cart or wherever. I think like we do the optimization, and I've been touting this stat recently that if you just added like credit card and three different BNPL or APM options, but you're looking at 2 million different cart variations that you
mm.
could based on color, button placement, etc. So it's like let us do that hard work for you, and really we're just optimizing to the conversion, and we're not optimizing necessarily like for a gateway. Like we don't care if like it's credit card or
Yep.
Klarna or if it's Amazon Pay. Like we just want your customers to check out. So that's really I think a value add, and I think really what people should be. That's where I think you know merchants should strive for is like what's the easiest way to get people to check out, and not necessarily what's the most options we can show them. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of like the payment paralysis kind of argument that it's like you don't want to show too many options. Like I think you want to provide as many options as possible. Like you want to meet the customer where they live. It's just how best to show those
In
options.
more of a journey rather than an overwhelming type situation.
Right,
And so you're talking
exactly,
about specifically
exactly.
stepping them through defined stages of a checkout more where you like, or is it different screens or is it just segmented in different ways on the checkout page?
No, it's one screen. I mean, it's really so with Bolt, you can either I mean, you have two options. You could offer checkout directly on the PDP on the product page, or you can go through the traditional cart process and have the checkout button in the mini cart, and then when you hit that, you're taken to the modal where you have the multiple payment options that you want to offer.
Hmm.
So and that's all handled, as opposed to what's really cool too is that, as opposed to having to have your dev team enable all those different options on the back end, you're actually enabling them through your Bolt account, through your Bolt merchant account. So you're creating Klarna credentials and then inserting those Klarna credentials into your Bolt merchant account, and then Klarna is suddenly, populated in your payment modal. And then that kind of, and then that carries with you, as I talked about conversational commerce a little bit. Like, I think one thing we utilized a ton when I was at Industry West is creating these back office payment links that you could insert into, a chat session or put in an email or whatever, and providing the same e-commerce-esque checkout, but through chat or through email.
Hmm.
And then they're seeing that same payment modal experience when they click that link, which I think is super cool.
Nice. Yeah, I have a podcast later today with GetRepeat.io, and that's their whole business model, is just that reorder functionality where it lives in emails and in
Yeah,
chat. Just because there's that huge gap between people that subscribe and people that just want to buy again and have a super easy experience doing it.
sure.
Ready to scale your customer acquisition with creators? Meet Incense, a creator marketing platform helping brands scale using authentic, mobile-first videos and images from a vetted network of influential content creators. For an extra spark in your ad performance, check out Incense's one-click influencer whitelisting solution, so your ads look like they're coming directly from an influencer. Sign up now and get $400 on your balance to work with creators at incense.pro. That's www.incense.pro. Very cool. Nice. You're on D2C Twitter a lot, which is a fun place to be. I feel like it's a fairly good community. What sort of value do you get out of D2C Twitter? I was wondering.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I get a lot of good ideas. I mean, there's so many smart people out there on D2C Twitter. I think so. I think one is like, it definitely elevates my own knowledge, which I think is obviously important. Like, always want to keep learning. I'm I'm 42. I'm gonna start soon. We'll be out of my prime, right? Like, I'm not gonna be one of the cool kids soon enough. If even if I'm probably not already. So like, I need to
I'm
be on
42
Twitter
as
to
well. We're
know.
pretty cool.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
we're so cool. All right. So like, I need to be on there to learn, like, to just keep track of what's going on, and to learn from some great people. I think it also keeps me pretty grounded, in terms of like, okay, there's like, I was telling my wife the other night, I'm like, there's this like D2C, there's this Twitter battle happening right now, right? And like, I tried to explain it to her, and she really,
Explain it to me.
was
I want
kind
to
of,
hear the Twitter beef. I got to hear this Twitter beef. Is it
I don't
D2C
want to
Twitter
get
beef?
too much into
Oh,
detail.
you
I
don't
don't
want to
want to
air the
out
dirty
people.
laundry.
Yeah, I don't want to air the dirty laundry. But like, what I
Got it.
told her was like, I was like, you know what? Like, this is such inside baseball right here, that like, there are maybe 75,000 people in this entire country who care about this. Like, and I'm like, the average shopper. And so like, I think like, when I talked about like payment paralysis, and I talked about like, this gateway versus that gateway, and should we be, I don't know, I don't know exactly what examples I want to give, but at the end of the day, like, there's like two coasts that care about that, and a bunch of cities in between, and the rest of the country has never even heard of half this stuff and
Yeah.
doesn't care, right? Like, they just want to go online, have a good experience, check out. Like, they're like, when I see people say like, if I go to a website and they don't have XXX checkout, like, I'm just leaving. I'm bouncing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's not normal. That's not normal America. Like, we're very,
Yeah.
there's a bubble that DTC Twitter lives in. And I think that's like, so I think it keeps me grounded to be like, okay, like, this isn't the real world, but this is also like stuff I definitely do need to keep abreast of.
Yeah.
So I take it for what it's worth on both sides. And I try not to, take it too seriously. But I mean, I think that there's some amazing people, like, that I've never even met in real life, but have offered me, just a few minutes of their time and expertise. Like, Val, is basically the advocate over at Klaviyo, and she. This is like a new position, this whole advocacy position, and she took that role and built it out at Klaviyo. When I told her I was coming to Bolt to do the same, I was like, I'd love 20 minutes of your time just to know what are we doing, and she was just so just awesome about her time. And so yeah, I mean, there's amazing people for sure, but
It's
there's also a lot of people who take themselves way too seriously.
Yeah, and we won't call them out on this one exactly, but I do. No, I know exactly what you mean. And I think we're in an interesting position now because our business is to connect to D2C brands, specifically. Either they're going to subscribe to my newsletter, they're going to work for Bolt. And so we kind of have this mentality where they're our customer avatars now. And we're also and I think your point about we're all each other's customer avatars in a lot of ways because the people in this D2C space are quite often also like hyper D2C consumers, and only a D2C consumer would say something like, "I'm not going to check out if it doesn't have, Klarna or whatever
Right.
on it," right? So I think that is a really good point. That
Like my wife has literally never used Shop Pay.
yeah,
Like I tell that to people and they're just like, "Are you insane?" And I'm like, "No, like I mean she hasn't. Like I don't know what you want from me." Like she,
that's funny.
and so and we're getting stuff delivered to the house like 3 days a week. So like
My
I'm
wife
telling
loves
you,
that. We just got like $500 of like herbs from someone. If you're listening out there in D2C, bribery will get you everywhere. So send me your products.
there you go.
That's awesome. You mentioned Inside Baseball. I noticed you tweet a lot about one of your passions, which is collecting sports cards.
Yeah, that's new for me. Yeah.
That's cool. Explain that? Talk to me a little bit about that. I collected sports cards like pretty avidly growing up, of hockey cards specifically,
Oh
which are
yeah.
worth almost nothing as far as I can tell now.
Yeah.
But yeah, talk to me a little bit about the sporting card thing. Is it something that you rekindled from when you were younger?
Yeah. So to your same, you said you're 42, I'm 42. I collected a lot of sports cards growing up, basketball in the early 90s, a lot of basketball, a little bit of baseball. Uh, have recently learned as I picked it back up over the past year to 18 months that I guess that was what they call like the junk card generation,
Mm,
where like we were pulling these like Michael Jordan 1994 amazing looking skybox cards, and like ends up there were, you know, 250,000 of those printed.
mm.
And like there are even some cards that someone posted the other day. There's like even the card itself said like one of 75,000, and we were like, back then when we pulled that, we were like, oh my gosh, one of 75,000, this is amazing. And now you'll see a card that's like one of 299 that's selling for like $10.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's super cool. It's been a really good experience for just to kind of get back into it, but then also to share it with my two teenage sons, and has opened them up to just a little bit of an entrepreneurial kind of experience for them to kind of take the time to rip packs and see what things are valued and what comps are and what they may be able to, like, do they want to hold, do they want to turn it, flip it. So it's been good. It's been really super interesting for me. Now it's more football, both American football and European football. Soccer is like what we collect mostly.
hmm.
But yeah, it's been super fun. And then, but to bring it back to like the D2C space, no one is doing this particularly well. Like everyone's e-commerce experiences for cards is pretty bad.
Hmm.
And I'm hoping when Fanatics, picks up a lot of these licenses, I think in 2 years is when they come due, and Fanatics gets its crack at it. I mean, I think Fanatics is going to do a great job of it, both on the customer service and just the checkout side. But I mean, a lot of these are doing pretty poor jobs. A lot of
That's
the
interesting.
major brands. Yeah.
It's there's interesting that collecting cards is making a bit of a comeback as NFTs kind of come up because I feel like they're
Yeah.
sort of like prehistoric NFTs. They're these limited edition,
hmm
things that are kind of that you can have ownership over. Are you in the NFT? Are you keeping abreast of NFT stuff at all?
A little bit, not too much. I, I'm not too much into it. I've been more into fractional, which is, I know, a different concept, but I mean, I
Mm.
have been into a lot of some of the fractional ownership stuff that's been going on, particularly in terms of sports memorabilia, like Rally and gosh, what's the other one? Collectible
Okay.
are the two main players in there, which has been fun. What's really interesting, I mean, I actually, that whole NFT, one of my sons is a pretty, I think he's a pretty talented artist, and I saw that like a future update of Adobe is going to allow you to save as as an NFT, which is pretty cool. Save files as an NFT,
Wow.
which I think will open up a whole level of kind of entrepreneurialism to a younger generation. And so yeah, I mean, I'm kind of abreast of it, but just like Twitter awareness, like I haven't really dove too much into buying what is it, like an ape or
Yeah, I don't even
yeah, I
know.
don't even, yeah,
If I can make them just on Adobe, I think that's a really cool piece of news. I hadn't heard that actually. I like that.
yeah.
I wanted to ask also, like, what's your mentality going into Q4 this year? How are you seeing the brands that you're working with preparing? Are people trepidatious about it this year? Are they just as excited as they have been in previous years? What's your read on Q4?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be bonkers, like something we've never seen, right? I mean, I think all these containers on the water, we have no idea what inventory levels are like. People are saying, do we want to push gift cards? Do we want to push buy now, receive Q2? I mean, and those are all great ideas, but our business is willing to take on the liabilities of those, outstanding payments, of that outstanding fulfillment. Um, I honestly don't know. It's
It's a
really going to
tough
be
one.
really interesting. I think businesses are going to need cash flow, right? So they're going to sell, and they may be selling things that aren't going to be deliverable until April for all they know. And I think it's going to be a huge customer service backlog, and the companies that are most transparent and deal with it best are gonna win and gain a lot of evangelists. But I mean, I think it's tricky time, and I also think what's super interesting is that this is another thing where I think it should not be inside baseball, but I think it's some businesses are going to realize that the general public is not as aware of what we're dealing with as we think they are. Like, I
In
think
terms
like
of what? In terms of advertising?
a
In terms of
supply, no, in
oh,
terms
this,
of supply chain,
yeah,
yeah, backup. So like I think yeah, it's on the news every now and then, and we see articles and whatever, but like I mean, so here's a point in case in point is like we have I'm a soccer coach at my kid's school, and we're trying to get some apparel for the coming spring season, and they had it the same company did the apparel for football season, and like there was a right, like they were delayed because everything is delayed. And some of the parents are like, well, I'm not ordering for this company again. Like they were, we got to use a different. I'm like, this is it. Like this is not the company's issue. This is like a global supply chain issue. And I don't think a lot of people, like I don't think a majority of the general public understands that. Like I think a lot of the public is still going to come like December 15th and think they can go on Amazon Prime and get stuff, and like that ain't happening. So yeah, it's gonna be super interesting.
are brands feeling the crunch? All I guess in we're seeing cases, but do you think are a lot of D2C brands feeling the supply chains constricting already, or it's just this idea that in the coming weeks and
Oh
months,
no, the supply chain's constricted.
it's
Yeah, no,
like
it has been for 18 months. I mean, and if your stuff, I mean, they say if your stuff's not on the water, like it's good luck. But I mean, I think if your stuff hasn't been on the water for 4 weeks now, like good luck. Like this, you're not, if it's not in stock now, like I don't think you're not restocking before Christmas.
yeah,
For a lot of like, and that's to say if you're not a company that's willing to pay the additional costs and additional fees to get to the front of the line, right?
yeah,
But I mean, when you're really looking at container prices that have inflated from $5,000 18 months ago to nearly $30,000 now, just to bring the darn container in, and that's without any kind of premium fee. It's yeah, I mean it's definitely crisis mode to an extent. So I think it'll be interesting, and then you have like I guess getting back to like the marketing side, like you have some people out there who's like, well, you don't have to run Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales because just having inventory is going to be in and of itself, a value add, and people will buy. Like I don't know that that's true. Like, you know, I I
that's
don't know.
interesting.
Like
You'd
it's
still
just
have
like
to be in their
what
field, right? If you were the one
right,
Black Friday Cyber, you could offer a lower discount, I guess. Like, because
right,
if you're the
right.
one in your field that's got inventory. And
Yeah,
people are wow. This is interesting. We don't talk a lot about this on the podcast, but it's obviously something that's going to be affecting people in one
yeah,
way or another, and is already. massively. So, don't want to end it on doom and gloom, but it's reality. I think that we have to
Yeah.
recognize. Interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it is super interesting, and we'll see. Like I said, I mean, I think there are some brands out there that are will be pushing gift cards heavy. I think there are some that are already being pretty transparent about just delivery issues and supply chain issues and whatever. And
Yep.
I think customer service is just going to be that much more important for these brands to survive.
Nice. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the D2C podcast today, Ian. This was interesting and entertaining, a little bit of a different one than we normally have.
Word. Yeah.
But
Awesome.
but
Cool.
I appreciate
Happy
it.
to
It
do
was
it.
real talk.
Sweet. All
Okay.
right. Great. Thanks, man.
Thanks, brother. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at direct-to-consumer, all one word, .co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.